Hello, Manga Matt here. I can't believe it, but after so many years of doing these monthly updates, I'm finally missed a month. So, sorry about that. I was busy. I'm less busy now, so I guess let's get started. We've got a lot to cover, and I honestly, some of this I can't entirely remember, so forgive me for that. But alright, let's get started here now with Higurashi When They Cry. This is the two latest arcs to finish. This is the first the Massacre arc, which lasted 3, and then the Festival Accompanying arc, which is 4, and actually these are 2 volumes in 1 from the Japanese volume list. So when you look it up on Wikipedia to see which is which, just know in your head that for these thick volumes they're 2 in 1s. But this is the arc that starts where we focus on what's her name, Rika Furude, who, when you finally see it through her perspective, you find out exactly what everything is going, what everything's been building up to, and what's actually going on with everything, how things are being redone over and over again, and you're seeing it through that perspective. So it's a long road, and it can wear on you a little bit at times, because some stories are better than others. But this right here at volume 19 is actually the part where everything finally comes together, and you figure out what exactly has been going on. And then when that arc is over, then we get the Festival Accompanying arc, which becomes sort of the crescendo for the series. This is where now we know what everything's happening for, and where everything's going, and then this is sort of the big culmination of everything to try and get it to work. This is kind of like in Star Wars. If this was the Star Wars movie, this would be the point where they're blowing up the Death Star. And then there's one more arc after this called the Dice Killing arc, and I don't know what's going to happen with that, but that's supposed to be the final arc of the Higurashi manga series, so I guess look forward to that. Alright, then moving on, we have Gundam The Origin, volumes 7 and 8. This is these are both absolutely excellent volumes. I wish there was a little blurb at the back to explain what's been going on, because I kind of can't remember everything that happens in 7, other than it's still more backstory for the Zabi family, and for Char's rise to brilliance. But then immediately following that, we return to modern time, which is where 8 picks up with sort of the big Operation Odessa mission, and this is actually probably one of the saddest ones, because we get this side story involving Kai, who meets up with this girl who's raising her little brother and sister, I believe. And at first Kai is kind of involved with her, but then he kind of has to go and take care of helping Light Base and stuff. He kind of gets his courage back to wanna be a part of this mission, and what he doesn't know is that, of course, she is a spy for the Zeon, and just a lot of drama kind of unfolds. But Kai doesn't necessarily know everything that's going on, so him not knowing kind of builds more tension for you to see whether or not, if he found out, he would accept her, or if that's just the line that he's not willing to cross for somebody. The love versus ideals kind of thing. But that's a very minor part. Then the rest goes into a lot more of Amuro being the main character again, especially this great one-on-one battle with Amuro versus Char in a big battle with also the Tri-Stars showing up, and also this weird mobile armor, the Barzam, kind of flying in. Some of these designs, like, I know he's trying his damnedest to make it look awesome, but some of them they just, I don't know. There's something about that design that just it doesn't really look as cool as it should have been, and that might have been just something with the show. And also, I don't know, there's something off with the proportions. Like, if that's supposed to be a Ga carrier, then shouldn't it be several times larger than the Gundam? Like, big enough that he should be able to land on one of the wings? I don't know. I'm gonna admit that some of the lesser known vehicles in the Gundam universe I'm not as familiar with. So if it's a completely different model, then I'm sure somebody can correct me on it. But I'm just saying, from the coloring and the looks, it looks like a Ga carrier, like the kind that what's his name? That the youngest of the Zabi family. It's the one that looked like he was the one that was flying the suicide attack into the Trojan horse way back when Garma Zabi? Yeah. That Garma Zabi was flying. I thought it was that carrier, just modified or something with a weird paint job, but I guess, I don't know. Well, it's still really good. I'm just saying. But alright, then next up, Wandering Sun, volume, sorry, there's a little something on the back here. I guess I'll fix that. Wandering Sun volume 7? Yeah, 7. This is one of the ones that, you know, when I had it in my head like a month or two ago, I could have told you exactly what was going on, but now I've just completely forgotten. You know, it's still more of this great kind of drama, and it's treated very seriously. I really love it a lot, and especially the way Fantagraphics is putting it out. Then let's see, going along here, we get Gantz, volume 32 and 33, which the only thing I'm looking forward to about this is that there's only 2 more volumes left of this series to go, to finally see where it's all building to. As far as like what happens, again, it's just, there's more ridiculousness just going on from volume to volume as to what's happening and sort of why. Again, the whole setup with the aliens, I don't know why the aliens are even attacking Earth. They don't explain that. They also don't explain really kind of how they're supposed to go about this or what. Like, some of the population just doesn't even know that they're invading another planet or they're launching war. And like, you just have these civilians that are just walking around the streets, these alien civilians, mind you, that are just walking down the street like it's no business whatsoever, and you're just sort of like they're just living in their apartments like it's every day kind of thing. And it's like, well, you are invading another world, shouldn't you be in some kind of military bunker or something? Or maybe there should be some kind of bulletin saying, hey, we're invading this alien world. If for some reason one of them infiltrates and tries to get in and you see something that looks like this, let a military authority know this is bad, or something like that. But it seems like there's a small part of the alien group that's part of the military force, but then the rest of them are just walking around like it's no big deal. And I don't know, it's just very, very inconsistent. I think he just wanted to do this thing and just make it happen. The only thing I would say is kind of cool is there's a part in here where they encounter some kind of alien creature that if you bust it open, then these weird spore things pop out of them. And then when the spore things hit you, they merge with your body and then make like multiples of whatever body part they absorb into. So if it gets into your arm, then it'll bust open and multiples of your arm just splurt out of it and you just die. It's like this weird sort of super gruesome kind of death, but it makes no sense why it's happening or anything. It's just extreme gore and body horror for the sake of it, and I got nothing. Moving on, Claymore, Volume 25, which features kind of more of these head-to-head battles, especially with what's her name, Priscilla, and the other really big heavy hitter that's kind of arisen. They're sort of going back and forth, and then there's something also going on with one of the others. They decided to just wreck an entire town. I guess she kind of went insane. I'm not sure what. It's hard for me to remember what happens because there's so many of these Claymore girls that are now doing their own things. But the fight with her is very interesting because they're both kind of playing off of each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they're using a lot of interesting strategies, especially the climactic ending with what's her name. There was a girl in here that was a really high class Claymore, and she had the mind of a child, and she's finally attained her awakened form and just completely decimates everyone, but at the sacrifice of one of the other characters. And they're both featured on the one is featured on the cover, but that was a particularly interesting storyline for that. Then let's see, Wolfsmund Volume 5, which is all about the raid on the Wolfsmaw. They've finally gotten into the Wolfsmaw, this invading force, and it's just even just getting into this base, it's still laced with layer upon layer of booby traps and blockades and contingencies. You know, it's not like a Wolfsman, like a what's his name, Wolfram. It's not like Wolfram. He never thought anyone could break in, and that's why he over-fortified it. He knew that eventually someone would get in, and he set all of these other layers. So they're just trying to break in and get around through all these little passages, and he of course exploits every kind of weak point he can manage to just get in. But of course, the fallout of this is that Wolfram does finally get cornered by somebody, and now it's wondering kind of what does Wolfram do when he doesn't have something to hide behind. So it's a very unique kind of twist they are taking with it now that Wolfram's been finally cornered. Alright, then Attack on Titan Volumes 13 and 14, which just has even more. It's still in that sort of lull period in the Attack on Titan where they're setting up a lot of things. There's definitely a lot more dialogue and a lot more focus, especially this time on the character Krista, I think is her name, Krista, and sort of her backstory too. But there's still a lot of other things going on, especially them trying to figure out more about Aaron's Titan form and more specifically the upper limits to what Aaron can do while he's in the Titan form, and especially when they kind of discover there's an extra hidden sort of thing going on with Aaron when he's in Titan form. He did it once by accident, but they're of course trying to see if they can get Aaron to do it over and over again. And this new talent gets the eye of some of the other upper-ups in the inside of the wall, and they're even interested in trying to get Aaron for that. And of course, some of that then leads to the Survey Corps members trying to actually get involved with trying to. I really should know more about what's going on in Attack on Titan because it's such a big thing. But a lot of it is also again dealing with Krista and sort of her backstory, because a lot of that is involved with a lot of the politics going on in their world, and specifically sort of what they're trying to do. Especially also they introduce these new kind of vertical maneuver gear, specifically maneuver gear that's actually sort of a anti-vertical maneuver gear. Like it's geared designed specifically capture people, to immobilize people, and especially they're trained to deal with people who also have maneuver gear. And it's interesting that it uses these guns, but these guns with these sort of grapple hooks on the ends of them, which is a really fun kind of idea, because it of course plays against the weaknesses of the vertical maneuver gear, which is of course you have to get in close with it. But now they've apparently been working on a different type that of course is a contingency to those. So it's one of those interesting kind of you didn't know we were planning on that sort of moments. Then let's see. Next is Lone Wolf and Cub, New Lone Wolf and Cub Volume 2, which again, I can't really tell you what happens in here, except that some guys try to take on Daigoro, and I think his name is I can't remember his new Togo Shigekata. Him and Daigoro get faced off against this overwhelming kind of enemy, and also unfortunately they apparently can't use the gun cannon thing that Ogami was able to incorporate into the baby cart. That thing has apparently, as you can see, been destroyed. So instead it's either that, or I think it's because they're trying to get rid of the baby cart to make it lighter to pass through this one section, and they realize they have to scrap all of the metal parts in it because it's gonna otherwise be too heavy. And Daigoro, of course, feels really upset about this because that baby cart was as much a part of him, and it was essentially a family member, the little baby cart, because it housed all the extra weapons and stuff for him and Ogami, and to see it kind of partially broken up like that was kind of like, breaking up kind of a part of your own family. But there's also great sword fights and everything. It's hard to really say as of yet kind of what the plot is, because I mean, in Lone Wolf and Cub, it didn't take until like the 4th volume of that before it actually got going on a plot. So with something like this, it's gonna take time, I guess. Then speaking of taking its time, we have a Blockade Battlefront 6, which again, it was another one of these volumes where it's just a bunch of these sort of standalone stories. This one focuses mostly on what's her name, the invisible werewolf girl in the group. I think Chain. This story has a big single story focusing on Chain, specifically her, and there's another group of invisible werewolves that do these covert missions sometimes for a secret group that they're a part of. And at one point they're trying to get a hold of this. Someone got a hold of a piece of demon power that no one should have a hold of, and the structure is so impenetrable, only an invisible werewolf can get in. Which of course they're sort of these creatures that can blink in and out of existence. So it's like teleporting, except they're teleporting by ceasing to exist and then re-existing in a different spot. So there's absolutely no way to block against it. But instead what they do is they create this sort of barrier that's so deadly that if you blink in at the wrong moment, then you're dead. And Chain's the only one that's able to blink out of existence long enough that she can phase in. But the problem is that if you do it for too long, you could actually blink completely out of existence. So there's sort of that interesting kind of will they, won't they kind of spy thriller mission, sort of Mission Impossible kind of thing with that story. It's really good. I'm liking it. I'm glad that the series has finally been picked up for an anime. And let's see. Yeah, this one I may have talked about it and I may have forgot, but I'm just gonna mention it again here. This is Canon God Exaxxion, and I only got volumes 1 through 5 of it. It's only 7 volumes long. I read the other 2 online because honestly, I don't think this series is ever gonna see the next 2 volumes released. Of course, I may be wrong. I mean, if Parasite can finally get an anime series and a live-action movie, then there's who's to say that this series might still eventually one day get a anime adaptation made for it. But essentially, this is Kenichi Sanada's take on the whole giant robots sort of genre show. You've got the main character Kano, life has become really easy since these aliens have come in to sort of make everyone's lives easier. They've introduced new technology, but now these aliens have decided, you know what, screw it, we're taking over. And because all their tech has been integrated with the alien tech, they can shut off everything. Mankind is without any means to stop them, except for Koichi Kano's grandpa, who has been working on a secret kind of weapon, the Cannon God Exaxxion, which is this giant mech suit warrior, and also a smaller suit that Kano wears, and these are the only pieces of tech that the aliens can't stop. He's been working on them for the last decade and a half, using reverse engineered alien tech and finding whatever kind of alternate forms of energy to beef it up. And it's surprisingly well written. It is, if you don't like giant robots and you want it portrayed more realistically, this is the series for that. Like, they go into the whole issues of going into a city, the fact that it wrecks everything. When you, even just walking, you're wrecking everything. You can't do anything in these giant mech suits without killing people, and they touch on that. The fact that Kano is in fact a radical, and he's taking the matters into his own hands, and that kind of wears on him, just being first portrayed as a villain, then a savior, then he's inspiring people to do things he doesn't agree with. Not all the aliens are bad. Some of them are actually sympathetic to the humans, but the humans still are seeing everyone as bad from the aliens' perspective, and some of them do perform atrocities on some of these aliens. It definitely paints a more moral gray area about sort of what would happen in a situation where you would have aliens come in, but of course it's very kind of muddled, but it's in a good kind of muddled way where it makes it more realistic. It makes you think about things rather than, oh yeah, all aliens bad, beat them all up, blah blah blah. Kind of like in Macross, where of course the Zentradi were a invading force, but not all of the Zentradis were bad, and not all the humans were good. Sort of like that. So definitely check that out if you were a fan of like Gunsmith Cats, that kind of art style, but you wanted to see maybe a more interesting take on giant robots. Alright, then let's see. What did you eat yesterday? Volume 4. Again, I cannot remember anything out of this volume. I can't even tell you what kind of foods were in this volume, but they were probably really good. Again, it's just one of those I can't remember. Then let's see, we get Pokémon Adventures volumes 23 through 25, which this wraps up the Fire Red Leaf Green arc of the Pokémon Adventures, with Red facing off against Deoxys in a big final battle. This was absolutely wonderful. I really liked it a lot. Can't wait for the Emerald arc to come up, which is the last arc of the untranslated Pokemon Adventures to come. And all I really know about Emerald so far is that the main kid, Emerald, he apparently fights with these weird robotic arms. So I don't know what that's going to mean, but it's going to be crazy. If you haven't been reading any of Pokemon Adventures, just please do. It's a ton of fun, all of it. Now this one I read more recently. This is the first volume of Pokémon XY in the small volumes. Again, not a lot really happens in here, but you do meet X and Y, who X in this series, he's become a social shut-in because he won a Pokemon tournament when he was really little, and he got a lot of press and accolades for it, and I guess it got too much for him, and he's just become a shut-in for the next several years. But one of his best friends, Y, or Yavanna, she thinks that she keeps coming every day to try and cheer him up and convince him to come outside, and eventually the two main legendaries, I can't remember their names, but they wreck the house. They wreck the whole area with their big Pokemon battle, and as a result, X, he has to leave, and sort of get thrust into this adventure as to dealing with Team Plasma that is after X because he has the Mega Stone on his. He has the Mega Ring on his wrist, which of course Team Plasma wants to use to Mega Evolve their Pokemon and make them strong enough to capture one of the legendaries or both legendaries to help them take over the world. But again, it's only the first tiny volume. You don't even know which starter X and Y are even going to wind up with yet. Except, I think that all you really know is that the fire one, they kind of lose it. It gets kind of lost. It drops somewhere. So they only have between Chespin and Froakie to choose between them. So it's definitely between those two, which that's going to be interesting. That two of the main characters aren't going to have a fire starter because in a lot of the others they were always in the black white it was they both had a Tedpig and then even before that in Ruby Sapphire Sapphire had the Torchic. They've all had the fire type, so it'd be interesting to see what it'd be like if the two main characters had neither of them had the fire type. Which for me, whenever I play Pokemon, I purposefully don't pick the fire type only because I know that it'd be too easy to win with it, except in Ruby Sapphire because I'm just a Mudkip fan straight through. He's just a beast. But anyway, that's me rambling about Pokemon. Okay. Next, let's see. We have Dance Till Tomorrow, volumes 3 through 7. This is the rest of the series. And how did I like it? I thought it was... First of all, it's hilarious. But it's hilarious in that subtle humor kind of way where they're very serious, but they constantly are making jabs and quips at each other. Kind of like that very kind of dry British humor. If you've ever seen like Black Books, which if you haven't, go watch it. It's definitely a lot like that kind of humor, where they're just sort of, it's all dialogue. There's no setups that make the humor. They're just in situations, and it's how they are thinking about it. That's where the humor comes from. Is them dealing with issues and dealing with scenarios, and the whole time they're just making fun of what's going on, especially at each other's expense, and especially at the main character's expense, who's honestly just trying to he's just trying to have a regular life, but all these people around him are just are either morons, they don't care about him, or they are purposefully trying to work some kind of angle with him. But it's really fun if you can manage to find all of them. Definitely do. I know the last volume or two, they're a little bit more pricey, but it's definitely worth it, I think, for a very touching kind of romance story that also doesn't last a bajillion volumes. Then let's see. Next up, Itazura Na Kiss, volumes 5 and 6, which again, I can't really tell you what happens in here, except again, is more of that kind of ongoing, humor and angst and stuff, and especially this one part right here, early in volume 5, where what's her name? God damn it. I can't. It's hard for me to always remember everyone's names. Naoki, where she, not Kotoko. I'm sorry. Where Kotoko decides to knit a scarf for Naoki because because she wants to make something for him, but Kotoko, she's not good at anything. So what happens then is when she makes her scarf, it winds up like this, where the one end is super long over the other end, especially in width, and that made me laugh so hard because I'll tell you, that is 100% true. Especially if you've never knit before and you try to knit something, you of course think, oh, I'll do a scarf. That's like the smoke on the water of knitting. That's like the first thing you learn because it's supposed to be so easy to do. But as my sister can tell you, this is the first thing she ever knitted, and she made it for me. It's a scarf, and you can tell which end she did first because of course it looks very kind of disjointed and there's a lot of misstitching, and then especially when you get to the end where it looks 100% better. But if you line them up, of course, you would see that they're not exactly the same width through and through, because when you start, you're obviously not as good as when you finish, especially if it's a long project like knitting, where you have to do it not only repeatedly but at a very concise length to keep it right. So that's one of those moments where life imitates art, where you see this thing and you think, oh, that's such a dumb thing. Who on earth would really be like that? And I can tell you, yeah, that happens. The only person someone would only make that joke if they'd actually tried it. That I would bet everything that Kaoru Tada, at one point, she did try to knit something, a scarf, and it actually wound up like that. Because that's one of those, you would only get that joke, you won't only think of that as a joke if you actually went through it, sort of thing. But that was kind of the big thing that stuck out for me. The rest of it, though, it's still really great. I love it. I love the interactions between Kotoko and especially the rest of Naoki's family, and how she really wants to be with him because she sees something in him that really sort of draws her in. There are these brief moments when he can sort of put his own, where Naoki can put his ego aside and he can try to be a nice person. You just feel for the two characters, and you can definitely see why this is one of those really sought after kind of classic-y shoujo series. All right, next up, this is actually all Tsutomu Nihei Works right here. First up is Noise, which is the very short kind of prequel to Blam, but also involves a lot of one side story to it involving a detective who's working in the universe of Blam. Overall, I thought this was kind of pretty cool. It's very short. If you're a really hardcore fan and want to see sort of the early origins and kind of a unique kind of independent story, it's good. But definitely check out more the the big series here, which is the first breakout hit from Tsutomu Nihei's work, Blam. At least that's how I'm pronouncing it. It's not like blame, because it's supposed to be the sound that a gun makes when it goes off. So the way I'm saying, I'm trying to say it like that sound effect. So that's why I'm calling it like blam, or some people call it blamu. But anyway, I guess there's no completely right way to say it. Anyway, it's 10 volumes long, and it really is some of the best sci-fi I've probably seen in a long while from in manga, because it's so minimal. There's very little dialogue. It's all set up, atmosphere, action. It's very kind of linear in its pacing. It's just really gorgeous. There's a lot of emphasis on black and inking and lines. So it even just aesthetically, it's very different from anything else I've seen, where usually there's a lot of white space. Here there's very little white space. It's the negative space that's more interesting and intriguing with it. It's a shame, though, that this series is so long out of print, and finding it is a bit of a chore for a price you're willing to pay. But the next one here, Biomega Volumes 1 through 6, is a lot more easily sought after. It's definitely still in print, and it's a lot of the same things that you like in Blam. They're all still there in Biomega. There's just maybe a bit more dialogue. There's a bit more development, but it's still a pretty short series. And of course, all of this is building up to now Nihei's main work that's garnered him big praise and has really jettisoned him into the mainstream consciousness. Knights of Sidonia, or Knights of Sidonia, and I've only got 1 through 6. I've only read through that, but I'm getting the rest of it. This is sort of the big series for him. It's available right now on Netflix streaming to go and watch. It's been a little bit unfairly compared to Attack on Titan, even though Knights of Sidonia came out before Attack on Titan, the manga series. So they're not. So it's just this kind of coincidental theme of, you had 2 series that were about humans fighting against these unstoppable monsters, and they're sort of the last remnants of mankind, and that's really about the only similarities between them, is just that very basic kind of concept that any series could have had. If anything, I would say Knights of Sidonia is more in tune with the sci-fi series Battlestar Galactica, because again, you have this crew of people on a space station, and they're just trying to find a place to colonize and set up shop for their people, and they're constantly being threatened by these foreign alien entity called the Ghana. And the Ghana, they're very difficult to kill. There's only specific things and specific ways that you can kill them, and of course they're always rapidly evolving. The Ghana, they're kind of like the Borg. If you kill them a certain way, after a while they develop a new kind of technique and a new kind of adaptation that takes away that vulnerability, and you have to figure out a new kind of way to kill them. And it's just both of them going back and forth with a different way to fight them. So if you like a lot of that, and also there's definitely a lot more humor in this than there is in Blam and Biomega. So it's hard for me to say if it's a bad thing that there's humor in his works, but at the same time, it's not a bad thing, because he knows where to put it. He doesn't put it in a awkward or weird kind of place. He puts it in those lull kind of moments, and I guess it helps to make the characters a bit more well-rounded. Overall, I think it's a great series. I can't wait for more to come out with it. It's definitely his longest series, which is interesting. He usually does very short series, but here he's he's definitely feels like he's planning to go the long distance with it. Alright, next up we have Dive in the Vampire Bund, Volumes 1 and 2, and then the Dance in the Vampire Bund, The Memories of Sledgehammer, Volumes 1 through 3. What's interesting about these is they're side stories of the main arc, but they don't actually take place in any sort of they take place in very specific places, but not at an even break. Like Dive in the Vampire Bund is actually somewhere between Volume 6 that it occurs. They actually point out the exact chapters it takes place, which kudos to Nozomu Tamaki that actually has the thought in mind to place a specific chronology with these side stories, and not just like they just happen kind of in sort of this place kinda sort of thing. A lot of other series, especially when you look at like anime movies of series, like try and place the chronology of any of the Dragon Ball movies, like Dragon Ball Z. You can't put those in the place of the anime anywhere where they actually happen, because I'm just saying it's a nice thought that he thought ahead to put it in a specific, telling you where it takes place and actually having the forethought to make it fit in that chronology. Essentially, Dive in the Vampire Bund is two people who come to the Bund because they want to get turned into vampires, because Mina Trepes, when she founded the Vampire Bund, she uses the limitless accounts of the Vampire Nation to fund everything, give everyone free housing, free healthcare, free everything for their daily lives. So she makes sure to also limit the number of people that come into the Bund, because of course lots of people just want to come in and get bits so that they can get all of this free kind of public care that's not afforded to them in a lot of other countries. Pretty much no other country provides you with free housing and absolutely free health care. That's not supplemented at all in any kind of infrastructure. So of course that whole thing is not only heavily regulated, but it's kind of a bad thing to do it kind of it's kind of the equivalent of illegal immigration, except it's turning into a vampire. And of course two guys decide to go in and get it done, but what they find out though is that there's a lot more going on than they thought, with especially a lot of lab research, because again this takes place in the middle of the Dance in the Vampire Bund. So there was a part in the middle of that series that there was a lot of vampire experimentation going on. Vampire experimentation which doesn't get played out until later in the main series, but it's here though where you actually see some of that going on, and specifically where that comes from in the main series. Then it's not, again, this isn't essential, but it does add a lot more background to some of the things that go on in the Vampire Bund series. Then Memories of Sledgehammer. This was a very entertaining read. I would almost argue that if you're willing to just do a little bit of Wikipedia work to learn a few names and to let yourself get spoiled with the ending of the first arc, I would say this arc right here could actually stand on its own, with very little backstory in mind. Memories of Sledgehammer. This story involves actually one of the main operatives of the Beowulf team, which are a team of werewolves that operate under the Vampire Bund, and especially one particular werewolf named Akira. I think there's actually in here not the two Akiras, but essentially Goto. I think his name is he's just going around, and he finds out actually there's this very disturbing kind of sex ring that's going on in the underground. They're kidnapping underage vampire children and selling them in a sex slave sex trade, because of course, being vampires, they never age, so there's never that problem of, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, to have your kind of sexual deviancy, you know, grow up and then have to repeat it. You could essentially sell someone one of these vampire children and they would stay young forever. And he investigates into this. Goto investigates into this, and he finds out one of the people responsible is actually a guy that he knew a long while back, and actually there's a bit of involvement with you actually get a little bit of backstory with the whole Kosovo war that happened in the 90s. So a rather surprising twist is that you learn a little bit about ethnic cleansing and the real world situation, an actual event, the Kosovo, I don't know if you call it skirmish, incident, atrocity, what have you, but you actually get a little bit of backstory about that, because that is involved a little bit in here. That was kind of an interesting place to pull some of your info data from, you know, like nobody really talks about Kosovo anymore, so it was kind of interesting to see that come up again, that somebody thought enough of that event to write a character with a backstory involved with that particular event going on. But again, the action is great. There's an excellent sort of climax. The main character Goto, he's in kind of this ticking time clock sort of scenario, that something went wrong with him, and he's going through some internal problems with it. There's a lot of neat suspense and drama to go along with it. Definitely really great series. Then next up we have Crayon Shin-Chan volumes 9 through 11. Again, I may have already mentioned this, but these particular volumes, but anyway, this is the end of the Crayon Shin-Chan translations that were ever made. You know, still wait and see if One Piece Books out there ever decides to translate beyond the 11th volume of this series to make more Crayon Shin-Chan and actually get them all out. If they do, I'm willing to rebuy everything just to get more Crayon Shin-Chan. But again, One Piece Books is kind of, you know, I keep hearing things about how they're doing the translation. They're missing things. Things aren't, like, they just seem very unprofessional in some places. So I'll see if they actually get all of Crayon Shin-Chan done, or a very significant amount translated, more so than already is out, to start getting some. But again, Crayon Shin-Chan, one of the funniest manga series, one of the funniest comic series ever. If you ever loved kind of like that very kind of raunchy humor, and you just wish that they pushed the envelope a little bit more, definitely check it out. The anime is good, the English anime, but they use a lot of, they dub over a lot of stuff that I don't think they really needed to. I think they could have left it in its original Japanese references, and it would have still been funny. A lot of the stuff in Crayon Shin-Chan really doesn't hinder that much on cultural jokes. Yoshito Usue, he just does a great job with making just very universal kind of jokes and humor. The only thing that you might miss is, like, I don't know, if they make a joke referencing like pork buns or some other kind of food related thing, or you know, the cherry blossom viewing festival, which the way he presents it in the joke, you know, you can pick up kind of in the context clues kind of way, kind of what's going on. Like Cherry Blossom Viewing Festival. Obviously, this is a festival where we view cherry blossoms. So the joke is trying to find that perfect spot. You know, kind of like when you go on a picnic. Like, you're trying to find that one spot, and you know, all the places are getting bought up or taken. Or, you know, like when you go to a fireworks show, all the spots are getting taken. You may not know exactly what's going on, but you've been there before. It's kind of these universal sort of experiences that make the humor so great. Next up, again, another one of them that I may have mentioned before. This is Holic Ray Volume 1. This is the first volume of Clamp going back and revisiting some of the Holic series storylines. I've already heard that they're going to put it on hiatus to work on something else. I don't know what Clamp is doing, but I wish they would just stick to something and go with it. You know, either work on Holic Ray, either work on Gate 7, go back or work on X, something, just something, and stick to it so that I get, you know, a complete thing. You know, not that I'm complaining that they're necessarily going back and stopping doing Holic Ray. Honestly, they're just more of these standalone stories, which, again, I would say that they were kind of their best stuff, and less so than when they were trying to do actually plot-heavy stuff in Holic. But in any case, if you were a big fan of Holic, it's just more of the same kind of storylines with that. Although, bear in mind, this takes place way earlier, before Watanuki became more involved in the plots of the series. The next up, Battle Angel Alita, The Last Order, Volume 19. This is the last volume of The Last Order, but it's definitely not the end of Battle Angel Alita, as the end of this volume actually features Alita on, I think it's Mars, the surface of Mars, and I believe what she's doing is she's actually tracking down one of the masters of Panzerkunst, which I can't remember exactly why she's wanting to find him, but any case, that's what she's doing. So there's definitely probably more Battle Angel Alita to come. It's just this arc is over. Then Deadman Wonderland Volume 6, which now we're getting introduced to some anti-Deadman people, which that'll be interesting to see where that goes. Next up, Naruto Volume 68. This is more of that climactic showdown with Naruto and Obito. This time, in this volume, there's a little bit more of a showdown of like ideals, and you know, it's kind of that internal kind of struggle going on, especially because they're both clashing with their full chakra force. It's hard to really say what's happening because it's just one big kind of climax. But you know, only 4 more volumes to go with that. Speaking of final volumes, we have a last volume of Bokurano Ours, which, again, really great mecha series, really great characters, and you always get that nice big climactic final battle, especially this one. This is probably the most tragic and terrible kind of ending that you could have had for a final robot battle. Like, the way he has to essentially kill an entire planet just to guarantee killing the pilot to win the final battle was just so terrible, and then the way it ends with just, you know, it's just a great series. I'm not gonna say it's the most cheerful and happy-go-lucky story, but you know, that was never kind of what it was meant to be. But if you're willing to see kind of these sad moments in there, then you know, there's plenty of these happy and redeeming kind of moments that definitely make it worth it for the series as a whole. So I would definitely say it's a very different kind of series for what it makes you feel, and for what it makes you feel, it does it better than I've seen a lot of series do in a long while. Then next up we get A Bride Story, Volume 6, which returns to the focus of Amir and her people actually invading the her sort of village, and they actually kind of have to form this big kind of battle to essentially save their people from this invading force. There's definitely a lot of action in here, more action than you would have ever expected from a shoujo manga series like this. It's a very unique sort of turn for this series to take, where, you know, before there was a lot of this kind of love and romance, and here we suddenly get this big epic kind of war going on between these two clans. Like, they whip out cannons and horseback sword fighting, and just, it was a very action-packed series. Again, the artwork is top-notch, some of the best you'll ever see. It's a really great series. Then Genshiken Volume 5, the second season. This is more just kind of, I guess, kind of ending that subplot with Madarame and sort of his feelings for Saki, and sort of where that ends in that storyline. There's also a lot of other characters that are sort of meeting some resolutions here in some of these minor plots that have been going on. So it's not really clear if there's going to be more subplots that are going to crop up, but some of those are ending. It's still a great slice of life kind of series for it. Let's see what's in here. Now, Bleach 62 is hard for me to remember what's happening, except that everybody is fighting everybody, which, you know, I don't have a problem with that whatsoever, but as far as like summation and recapping, it makes it a little bit hard. Again, I didn't hate this volume. It's just, I don't know, it doesn't feel like there's enough sort of build up for me. Especially a lot of the Quincy's that they're fighting, they just don't feel like they have enough personality to really make me remember them, especially at this point in the game. Then next up we get Suikoden III. This is the entire manga adaptation of the manga series, of the video game series. The manga adaptation of the TV series, I keep saying it wrong, of the video game Suikoden 3. That is to say, the third Suikoden game. This is the manga adaptation of that. Now, how do I feel about it? This was absolutely great. I loved it. I could follow it at every point in the storyline. The artwork is also wonderful in it. Some great line work, and also the way a lot of effects are drawn in especially kind of the like the explosion scenes are done in a great way. Even like drawing some of the animals and these little creatures and stuff. He knows how to do like great sort of shots. He knows the right places to use the right kind of art styles. Which goes to show a really great artist when they can do it like that. And especially also really helpful for me is, especially in a series like this, we get names for every single character, we get a quick rundown of their affiliations, we get and we also get a recap storyline. Every single volume of this, except for of course the first volume, gets a recap of everything up until that point. I cannot stress you enough how good that is to have in a series like this, where there is a lot of characters doing a lot of stuff at once. I'm not to say that it's complicated or it's daunting to try and follow, but you know, when you read it and you stop reading it for a little while and you go to pick it up again, having a recap like that really helps you follow along with what's happening. Like, maybe you're like, oh, I forgot this one. Who is this one character again? And then it's like, oh, it was that. Yeah, now I remember. Like, having that was just a godsend. And of course, that is, you know, that's entirely up to the localizer to do that. So a lot of localizers, they don't care to try and do that. You know, with something like Bleach, wow, wait a minute. Does Bleach even have a recap? Okay, yeah, it does have a recap. Like, see, look at that. 62 volumes. This is not a recap. 2 paragraphs is not a recap. All right. Naruto. What do we get for a recap in Naruto? Like, okay, two paragraphs. Okay, that's a little bit better, but for 68 volumes, not quite enough. Look at this. Suikoden, Volume 4. What do we get for a recap? We get 2 pages of recap. That is a recap. That is enough story that should be covered in that amount of time. Like I mean, that's not to say that there's a lot that happens. It's just that if you're gonna recap for me. Don't just give me the elevator pitch of what's happened in 68 volumes of a series, and then expect me to just dive right in like I would know anything. Like, here, you can legitimately pick up any of these volumes and be able to go, because those recap pages are that good with it. I just wanted to pause for a moment and, address that, because when something does a really good job with a particular thing that I don't see in a lot of other works, I like to point it out, because that sticks out to me. Alright, and then last thing for this 2-month block of update here is Assassination Classroom Volume 1. Now, this series, first volume in, I already love it. Let's kill the teacher. Oh, but wait, killing the teacher isn't exactly as easy as we thought it was. You shoot his arm off, he can regrow his arm like it's nothing. Oh, also, by the way, your teacher is an alien that will destroy the world in 1 year if you can't kill him in that time. Did I mention that? It's a really fun kind of series because it knows how to work its tone. The teacher isn't malicious or anything. The teacher is actually really into trying to teach the kids, like, academics. They hand him a paper, and because he can move at super speed, he grades the paper in 5 seconds and hands it back, and then tells them, look, you didn't do so hot this time, but if you want to, we can stay after class and I can show you how to do it better for the next test. It's just so funny that, of course, there's this class where everyone wants to kill the teacher, but the teacher is so adamant on wanting to teach and educate that it doesn't bother him that his students are mostly just trying to kill him. There's a lot of great kind of humor. It's not like Stand and Deliver where, the kids are troubled youth. Well, they are technically troubled youth, but they're not like... There's never this sappy heart-to-heart moment, it feels like. It feels like a lot of it is very kind of genuine humor with the setup that you have. I'd be more interested to see kind of where they're going with this storyline, how this is going to play out in a long-term kind of format, or if it's going to be long-term. Maybe it'll only be like 6 volumes. I think there's definitely at least 6 volumes worth of material out of a hilarious concept like this, and it's very unique. Like, this was, for a while, this was a very kind of cult hit sort of manga series that you were only hearing about in little blips and blurps here and there, but I guess now it's finally garnered enough accolades that they're actually making an anime series out of it, which, thank God, something like this that's so radical and different really deserves a series and get highlighted, bucking the trend of a lot of these other, kind of generic-y, kind of shonen action series, something like this where clearly there was a unique kind of idea in mind for it. Really like it. Okay, well, that's all I got for these 2 months. I'll definitely be trying to get back into the swing, the 1 month swing of things for this year and on. Alright, laters.